Welcome to Critical Junction episode 14. I'm Mark.
I'm Emanuela Freschino. No, I'm Luke. Sorry.
I'm Jill.
And today we're talking about the Mandela Effect. So there's an article that appeared in Psychology Today entitled Ben Carson and the Mandela Effect that has a really good definition of it. So I'm just going to go ahead and read that to start off with. So, according to the paranormal researcher Fiona Broom, the Mandela Effect occurs whenever a personal memory is found to conflict with a historical record. Broom recalls TV reports from around 1980 that Nelson Mandela had died in prison. Naturally, she was surprised to learn of his release and election as president of South Africa in 1994. When she shared this experience with friends at DragonCon, she learned that others had similar false memories. Broom believes memories are out of sync with the recorded history occur because our minds get entangled with alternate universes. Now, before we get into the whole multiple worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics and all that, because that's inevitably where this thing is going to lead, why don't we start off with a couple of examples of the Mandela Effect and go from there. Jill, did you have anything you wanted to start off with?
Well, yeah, so I would like to talk, I guess, about the Mandela Effect itself. I mean, this Broom blogger lady, I think she only came up with the Mandela Effect in like 2010. It's not like as of the 80s, she actually literally had a memory, an active memory, and this kind of knowledge about Mandela. It's like around 2010, she hears about Mandela, and she at that point declares, "Hey, wait a minute! I thought he died at some point in the 80s."
Right.
Are you suggesting this is where the term comes from? Like this?
Yes.
This instance?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And so this is, in a sense, the first documentation of this sort of a psychological phenomenon, or whatever that is that we want to call it.
It's from here that I think she can be credited with blowing it up to make it into like a pop culture phenomenon.
Yeah,
Okay.
she kind of coined the term for it, but it really started taking off in popular internet culture just really recently. I think it was either because Vice ran an article about it or people on Reddit picked it up and started talking about it. But like it really started taking off when the whole Berenstain Bears thing
I remember
started.
This really wasn't that long ago.
No, it's really recent. But it's really just started coming into popular culture, especially because of that Bears thing. I don't know, like you were saying.
So with the Mandela example specifically, I think that one's really easily explainable just by looking at the timeline for the Mandela story, I guess. Because in 1980 is when the start of the international Free Mandela campaign kind of starts off and goes global. In 82, Mandela's in the news globally because he's moved from the prison where he's been for 20 years to a different prison. Then in 1985, the then president of South Africa, Botha, I think is how you pronounce his name, he offers some kind of conditional release to Mandela. So they're in the news again, but Mandela rejects it because there's like these conditions about like rejecting the legitimacy of any kind of violent response to violence being done to them, right? And then also in 1985, Mandela's in the news globally because he goes in for surgery for an enlarged prostate. And around this time too, there's sort of like a blow up of the protests and the resistance to the apartheid and
so
stuff like that. So
there was a free him before he dies kind of feeling going on at that point?
That's it. And so I'm thinking that this point here in 1985 when he goes in for surgery and then there's the blow up of the revolting in South Africa because of our apartheid. I'm thinking this is where a lot of people who aren't from South Africa and weren't at all like geopolitical experts or in any way related to that and just had kind of a casual knowledge of world affairs would have just heard about Mandela at this time, and in their mind that would have just kind of faded back as like, oh, maybe that's when I heard of him dying.
Yeah, like the whole misremembering of that particular period of history could easily be attributed to people thinking, well, wow, he was in the hospital. I thought he died, and and
Is there detail to? Is there a manner in which they felt he died? Like, was he killed by police?
No,
or was
exactly.
Okay, so just that he died.
They just remember him dying in prison.
It's not like they're thinking of Biko, who was killed by police.
At most, they brag about the extra detail that they have that it was televised, and they remember seeing a funeral on TV.
They distinctly remember the funeral.
But that's it. That's as far as it goes.
There are no details aside from that. It's just, I remember him dying in prison and then seeing the funeral. So with the absence of any kind of additional detail to build on that story, it just seems like people are misremembering it en masse. Like it's
there's other things in the history too that it just seems really obvious that this could be tacked on as things that would kind of feed into a false memory about him dying. Like in '88, Mandela's 70th birthday happens, and they have like a big tribute concert that's broadcast globally actually at that time. So people were hearing about him again, and I'm sure some people might have thought of a tribute concert to Mandela, who's 70 years old at this time, thinking maybe this is a tribute concert to a guy who just died or something like that. And also in '88, he's recovering from tuberculosis because of damp conditions in the prison, and he's moved again from one prison to another. So there you go again. He's sick, and he's
dying.
He's
There's
being
a sense
moved.
of him
he's
dying.
being moved from the prison that he was at. So and then it's not until 1990 that he's released, but then in '94 he becomes the president of South Africa.
Yeah.
There's just so much in that history that can easily come off to like just a casual kind of listener to global news, as you know.
Yeah, because it goes from I thought he died to I know he died, and then people start attributing all these weird things.
It's that certitude that really bugs me, though.
It also makes me think: is this white people misremembering a black person that died in prison for political reasons, like Biko or something like that? You know what I mean? So they're thinking of another guy.
Yeah.
You know?
That's also another. That's easily a possibility.
I mean, it's funny because it's racist, but there's also just the idea.
It's funny because it's racist.
That's right. That's why it's funny.
But there's also just the idea of like psychological heuristics. You know, we take shortcuts all the time. We categorize things just for like just the cognitive economy. You know,
right.
So
human memory isn't...
If it's not directly relevant to your life and how you lead it, of course, this kind of information can be.
I would compare it to like remembering a movie, and then you see that scene again, and you're like, "That is not as funny as I thought it was. That is not how that Rogue One isn't as good as I thought it was."
Human memory isn't a linear thing. It's not like watching a film on a screen. Like
exactly.
Whenever you're remembering
not just
something,
playing back a hard record.
No,
That's
it
right.
isn't. Like your memory will pick and choose little items and then fill in the blanks as it goes in order to be more efficient.
Yeah,
that's how the brain works.
It's true. I have a very terrible memory. And I do feel that, long ago memories are very, very small. Mm-hmm. They're a snapshot that I'm then filling in the blanks with, kind of thing. And is it not true, or is it not the case that it has been proven scientifically that the more often you remember something, the less accurate it actually becomes?
Yeah, the more you start injecting
so
into
each remembering becomes
corrupts
more and more flawed.
Let's also not forget how easy it is.
It's like photocopies.
Yeah,
like a photocopy of a photocopy of a photocopy. It just becomes more and more corrupted and more.
Right, and let's also not forget how easy it is to introduce false memories.
Yeah,
there was a psychologist who ran this experiment very recently. I think it was just a few years ago, but she wrote either a paper about it or a book about it or something. But she managed to successfully introduce false memories into a bunch of different volunteers very, very easily.
Yeah. Like probably surprisingly easily. Do you know what the example is? Do you have the details of it?
I don't have to look them up.
We're going to have to post that on the thing.
We will.
Does it come with video?
You're talking about Elizabeth Loftus.
That's her, yeah.
Yeah.
I love her.
So in the 90s, I think was when her talk about confabulation and false memories really kind of blew up, because there was all these cases about children who were being coaxed to talk about their abuse at daycares or something like
the
that.
Thing that put away those people in the States, and they were they had right. Yes, this is terrible.
There's this whole satanic panic that
was
comes
the
into
the 80s satanic panic.
Sure,
that occurred in
it's all
southern
related.
states, I guess, or something.
So she basically came up with a lot of material and research to show how easy it is to introduce memories and introduce false memories, and ever since then, I mean, you just can't rely on eyewitness testimony as well as.
I've noticed for myself. I've noticed with my own memory major problems.
You might want to get that checked.
No, but I mean, things that have been blocked out by my memory, and once I've, consolidated that years and years later, the memory does return, or I'm able to accept, oh my God, that did happen, and I wasn't able to process that, like crazy memory stuff. It's mind-blowing. Like, it's crazy. But I don't think that the human mind. And I think that the human mind was better at memory before. Can I say this?
I think you mentioned something like this before, where you're talking about how actors remembering the entire catalog of
like Shakespeare.
Exactly. Like back in the day, these Shakespearean actors were traveling around, and they could have interchanged roles at any time. They knew all of the plays. That's a mind-blowing memory in my mind, anyways. Like I watch movies with, let's say I watch a movie with my friend Jake. He will remember the dialogue first time he watches it. He's quoting the dialogue afterwards,
really?
And
if you look at,
I liked that movie. I have a general sense of how I felt about that movie.
Yeah,
but
if you look at actors like Peter Sellers, who played 3 characters in Doctor Strangelove, like that. That's kind of cool when you think about it.
Yeah, not only is he remembering all of the lines, but he's also got to remember the mind space that he puts himself in.
We don't know if he was memorizing lines, because he was actually dyslexic. So I actually think he was possibly not reading lines at all, and it's possible that he was just making it all up. I don't know. I'm not sure, but he was dyslexic.
I know the phone call scene with the Soviet premier, that was totally improvised.
Yeah, it could have been improvised.
It was. He just made that up.
And in terms of how Kubrick directs, I know
he's just go with it.
He doesn't know what he's necessarily looking for. He just knows what he doesn't like.
Yeah.
So he keeps on going until he finds that thing he just doesn't not like.
That's almost contrary to what I've heard some other people say about the way Kubrick directs, where Kubrick is like super meticulous about how he frames a scene and how he sets up a scene where every single item that's in the shot is calculated to serve a purpose. Right, to serve some kind of symbolic purpose. So it's surprising, actually, to hear that
I had that idea of him. Yeah. Well, both make sense in my mind, though. I guess. Like, I would think that he's meticulously placed these things there, but due to having seen what it looks like, and you're saying meticulously, but we don't know if this was done slowly or quickly. Right. The way you're saying it as if it was done all quickly, and he had the exact plan in his mind, but it could have been done very gradually, and with the same concept in mind. No, that doesn't quite look right. Let's just slide that phone over an inch. It needs to be over an inch.
So there are a couple other examples of the Mandela Effect that I wanted to bring up. One of them, easily attributed to just misremembering something completely and something taking a foothold in modern consciousness, is the Star Wars scene. People always tend to remember it as Luke, I am your father, when the actual line was, no, I am your father. And people attribute that to the Mandela Effect. That was never the line. It was always, no, I am your father.
Right.
I don't know why people... It's the same reason as people remembering from Star Trek. Captain Kirk saying, "Scotty, beam me up." That he never said that in any of the original series.
No,
So it is us later
Scotty
on
was
using
not
it.
was not like a beam up guy. He was the freaking ship's engineer. Why would he be beaming people up all the time?
The closest line to that is "Beam us up, Scotty."
Okay.
And I think
Well, that's pretty damn close.
It was
That's
close.
pretty damn
But what
close.
you're saying is that happened
Which kinda
once,
kills
not
my
every
mind.
show.
Yeah, it happened once in the 3 seasons that ran.
So that would be the reusing of something that then changes it. Because in talking about, let's say, the Darth Vader scene where he's telling his son, because my name is Luke, it comes up a lot. And people would say, "Luke, I am your father." Ha ha ha, get it? You know.
So
and
the thing
this
is,
happens
like,
real-
outside of the context,
it's to be able to use it quickly, as a tool of joke.
Well,
you know?
well, see, here's
like a
what I'm
disease.
thinking about it. So that line, it's used a lot in promotional materials,
Right.
Right. So it's like printed on T-shirts, on lunchboxes, or whatever. And if you take the line out of the context of the scene,
Then it doesn't make any sense.
it doesn't really
Exactly,
make
yeah.
much sense. So if you want to make sure that this is a Star Warsy line,
tighter package.
you say, okay, we're talking about Luke Skywalker here, and this is Darth Vader's talking to his son.
Yeah.
So people are remembering the promotional material,
Not the line from the movie.
not the line from the movie.
And that doesn't mean that they're suddenly remembering something from an alternate timeline.
No.
It's just they're remembering promotional material. That's all it is.
Yeah.
I would think this other thing, this alternate world thing. Are we getting into the alternate world?
No,
thing
not
yet.
yet.
Not yet. Is it
No,
too
no.
soon? Is it
It's
too
too
soon?
soon.
now?
It's too soon. Let's get to that later. I would like to actually tie in the Star Wars line just to another aspect of this that I noticed, which is that like a huge chunk of these Mandela Effect examples, they have to do with these really trivial semantic, linguistic, or language-related things.
Can I just play the scene
You know-
first before? Hold on, just
Oh, okay.
just for the fuck of it, I wanna.
Let's hear it.
Yeah, just cause Oh, it's the whole thing. Oh wait, hold on. That's way too long.
For training. With our combined strength, we can end this destructive conflict and bring order to the galaxy. I'll never join you! If you only knew the power of the dark side. Obi-Wan never told you what happened to your father. He told me enough. He told me you killed him. No. I am your father.
Just want to get the no thing in here.
I mean, why would Vader actually say, Luke, let me talk to you.
Luke,
right?
Luke.
Luke.
Luke. No, I'm father. Yeah, so no, that's the scene. Anyway,
Yeah.
just wanted to get that over with. You were saying.
No, thanks for that.
All right.
I like that. Yeah, so a lot of them are like this, like just misremembered words or spellings.
Yeah, I noticed a
differences
lot
in
of these have to do with
spellings
spelling,
or even punctuation.
Yeah, let's talk about the spelling thing for a minute because there are a lot of examples of that.
Oh yeah.
Notably the Berenstain Bears thing.
Yeah, that's the biggest of those examples that,
Yeah.
that a lot of people have kind of glommed onto.
Yeah, what gets me the most is the author's name. Like
Yeah.
the name of the authors was Berenstain, A-I-N.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah,
So obviously they named these characters after them.
yeah.
And the reason I think why people are remembering or misremembering it as the Berenstain,
Berenstain
yeah,
Bears?
E-I-N is because the Steen ending is
It's
very
just more
common.
familiar to us. Yeah, it's more
That's
common.
it.
Yeah.
Like Einstein, Frankenstein, you name it, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And
So laziness. They were lazy. They got inundated
it's not
with
necessarily
too much.
laziness. It's the brain attributing something familiar to something that isn't.
Right.
So if
Yeah.
if you're accustomed to seeing the
Sorry, I'm attributing
EIN
everything to
ending,
laziness.
you'll tack that on automatically.
Not to mention that when you're a child and becoming familiar with these cartoon characters, the Berenstain Bears.
I was never familiar with them as a child.
Neither was I.
No one
actually,
loved
but-
him
but-
as a child.
But
He
I'll
was
get
read no
to
books.
I'll get to the point though. But if you're a kid and you're getting familiar with these cartoon characters, you don't have the baggage of having like this long history of being familiar with these Steen last names. Right? So when you're a kid, it's not remarkable to have these bears named Berenstain. It doesn't
You're
it
just
doesn't
not
not
retaining that.
jive with all of the different other last names.
Right, you're
that
not making
you
anything
know.
in particular of it.
Exactly, exactly. So when you're a little kid, you're interested in these bears, and as you grow up, these bears become stupid. You let go of that, you forget about that, you grow up, and then if you're reminded about the bears again and you're talking about them, you're just going to project the
Bear attached to
the
something
most
else.
available memory that's like closest sounding to the name.
Right,
You're gonna project that onto
It all
it.
makes
You're gonna
sense.
say, okay, it's these Berenstain bears, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Can I just loop back to the Star Wars thing real quick?
Okay.
There's another Star Wars related Mandela effect. Just gonna put that out there. What color are C-3PO's legs? Is he all gold?
Well, I'm going to rely on my memory of my little figurine, and yeah, I believe they did release the figurine as all the same color, so that's different.
Most people remember C-3PO as having 2 golden legs, when in reality he had 1 silver one.
One silver and one gold.
They must have changed the timeline because I don't remember that. No, they didn't.
Alternate universe. Yeah,
Alternate universe. Yeah, no, he's always had 1 silver leg. You don't notice it because the rest of him is either, when he's in frame, you're not looking at the legs all the time. You're looking at up here, and you don't notice it. And as soon as someone points it out, holy fuck, he has a silver leg.
Yeah. And then the mass-produced toys that they made of him. I mean, these are cheap freaking toys that they produced.
All the same color. Yeah.
Like
he had
way easier just to make a full.
He had no pupils, anything. He was all the same color.
Yeah, full brass
I'm
color.
even saying he. It could have been a she. C-3PO maybe she/he. It has no gender. It's kind of funny that I just assumed he was he. I guess it's because of the guy doing the voice, right?
Well, the voice is definitely masculine sounding.
Well, it's not masculine sounding, but a man.
Sure. Yeah, you're right. Male sounding, not masculine sounding.
Did you just emasculate?
You just emasculated C-3PO.
Daniel, I'm emasculating you.
While we're getting back to the spelling things, there are a lot of them.
There's the Looney Tunes versus Looney Tunes,
and the Fruit Loops versus Fruit Loops.
Yeah.
When is it? What was that one? The Fruit Loop one?
Okay, so Fruit Loops, the cereal, it's spelled F-R-O-O-T.
Yeah.
Like Fruit Loops.
Okay.
Yes. It's silly spelling, right? And they actually superimpose the cereal O's.
Yeah. They wanted to use the
place.
Cereal in the lettering.
So you've got 4 O's in prominence right in the middle of the box there, in the middle of the name.
But you're not thinking like that. You're thinking fruit.
You're thinking Fruit Loops, and so a lot of people think that it was supposed to be fruit, like the real word fruit, in the name, and it changed to loops. But the funny thing about the Fruit Loops example, actually, is that this is one where they think that there's a double Mandela effect that happened. This is one where some people think that it was originally fruit with the 2 O's, and then the universe changed it to fruit with the UI, and then the universe changed it back to the double O's.
Oh yeah.
At some point.
Yeah, the same theory applies to people who think something happened to the spelling of the name of the Flintstones, with a T and then without the T and then with again.
It was always Flint.
It was always Flint.
It was always Flint, but people
so this
didn't know about rocks
to our
back then.
search for order, right? Like I'm thinking of Darwin and how insects will mate with. There's a particular insect, and it will mate with the insect that has the most parallel wings. Like the wings are most balanced, and seeking balance in the world. Does this make sense? Like Well, I'm just saying that we're trying to create order out of chaos. I'm thinking of the language thing and thinking of words. I mean, words aren't. Language breaks a lot of rules.
Yeah.
And so when we think of Fruit Loops, we most naturally cling to fruit, like the spelling of fruit sort of thing. So what I mean is we're trying to impose order on the world.
Right. So when something violates it unexpectedly...
We're looking for balance here, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so we cling to our own brain's ideas of the balance.
Either you're in on the joke and you find it fun and whimsical, or you just think, no, that's wrong.
Yeah.
You know?
Right. We jump down things' throats because it threatens us as soon as we're wrong. No, that's not how Fruit Loop is spelled. You know
exactly.
Stupid.
Then it becomes more solid in our minds.
Who puts 2 O's in the word fruit? That's ridiculous.
They would not do that. Who makes it? Is it? I was going to say, does Marvel make Fruit Loops? No, it's not Marvel. It's not Con.
Marvel?
Kellogg's, Post,
I think it's
General Mills. I don't know.
I think it's Post. I'm going to say Post.
Maybe Kellogg's.
Oh, it is Kellogg's.
It is Kellogg's.
Okay,
Just looking at the image there with the
It's Toucan Sam that makes it.
It's a bird.
The bird
Very
produces
colorful beak
cereal.
that doesn't know how to spell, I guess.
No.
Do we want to talk about the non-existence of Jiffy peanut butter?
Oh yes, yeah. I love
that
that
doesn't
one.
exist?
No.
Jif does. Jiffy doesn't.
Oh, Jiffy.
Yeah.
You're right. Yeah, you said Jiffy, and I was like, yeah, that's a peanut butter. I didn't even know it was Jif. Right there you go. Yeah.
So everybody's convinced that this is evidence that the universe is conning us. I think what's happening with the Jif versus Jiffy is that people are mixing up Jif and Skippy.
Oh, Skippy, yeah.
You're totally right. That totally makes sense.
I think people are just conflating these two.
I was about to say it's almost
brands.
like an aesthetic thing of going like, well, Jiffy's just better. Like, that's just a better word, so it becomes like an aesthetic detail thing. Like,
plus Jiffy is an actual word.
In a Jiffy.
Like in a Jiffy,
right.
I guess.
Okay.
Right? So
both those things, Skippy and Jiffy being a real word, and Jif not being a real word.
The Skippy thing had never occurred to me. I didn't even think about that. Yeah.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. Yeah,
Totally makes sense.
that's just totally me, man.
Totes.
Yep.
We were talking about
I want credit.
We were talking about the universe making these weird corrections and creating Mandela effects. What I find fascinating is that a lot of people are attributing I've been using the word attributing a lot in this episode, but they've been relating
Let's try and
it back
attribute that to something.
Yes, okay, thank you. But they've been relating the Mandela effect to CERN and the Large Hadron Collider.
Yeah.
Yeah. By activating the Large Hadron Collider, scientists at CERN have fucked with the timeline, and this is the result we're getting. There's all these weird anomalies.
They think that the Large Hadron Collider, when they turned it on, it caused some kind of catastrophic disruption of our universe, and then everything in our universe just kind of slipped into the immediately neighboring parallel universe.
Right.
And I find this ridiculous for a number of reasons. First of all, what does it mean for a parallel universe to be immediately neighboring when you're
still only experiencing one?
No, but also when you're talking about multiple universes, the idea that they're parallel to each other. This is kind of following a projected image that we have
really
of linear time and a universe being a simple one-dimensional line, going from left to right.
Let's just say then
and what does it mean for something to be immediately neighboring when there's no space-time outside of the universe that we're inside? So
you're saying parallel is the wrong word there because
exactly.
it suggests two lines alongside each other following suit.
No,
exactly. I think that's one. So that's one thing. That
I think parallel is the word to use. It's they're non-intersecting, right? If the universes are parallel in the strictest definition, they will never cross, right? That's what parallel means. But the term immediately neighboring, that's when I think things get a little bit confused.
What if they're infinitely looping?
They could be.
in their own multidimensional space.
Sure, but again,
then they'll never intersect either, and they're not parallel.
Okay, that's sure. That's I can accept that.
They could cross and it wouldn't matter.
Well,
sure, there's that too.
Because conditions may not be differences may not be relative or something like that.
Well, the initial thing that I was thinking was just that if you've got like a tangled up, curled up universe,
of parallel universes, or parallel only in the sense that they. No, I guess we can't even use that word anymore. Okay, so a tangle of universes, let's say a knot.
A single universe is like a knot.
Okay,
let's say, right? And you can have another universe that's like a knot, but it's like infinitely kind of twisting into itself. Right? Yeah. But they might never intersect because they're nowhere near each other.
Right.
In any sense of the term. They're not near each other.
Yeah.
they wouldn't
different.
intersect each other.
At this point they're different.
But they're not necessarily parallel. Like the reason that they're not intersecting is not because they're parallel.
I did like the idea that by parallel we just mean that they never actually intersect. Mm-hmm. They are completely separate. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Beside each other. That makes sense.
But even just the idea that they're beside each other,
You're right.
Kind of
We're just
odd.
okay. We're just trying to separate.
I'm using
them,
the words beside each other kind of loosely. They like
symbolically,
geographically speaking, they may not necessarily be neighboring to each other, but like what I'm trying to say is they exist in some kind of proximity, but not really. I don't know. It's going to get really abstract.
Maybe, and so like getting into the meat of how they rationalize or justify it scientifically, they'll often cite the axiom that energy is never created or destroyed.
Of energy?
Yeah, it's never created or destroyed, right? So if our universe is completely disrupted and destroyed, well, the energy of our universe has to go somewhere, so it went into another quote-unquote parallel universe.
That's such bullshit.
Okay, but if that, even if you can grant that happened, that all of our energy went to one other universe, then why did it maintain the configuration that we consider ourselves with our intact memories that are specific to our individual selves? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, it's just wholly ridiculous to me.
Okay, well now we're getting into the many worlds interpretation and such. So let's.
Yeah.
Do you want to go there? Is that where we're going?
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, I think that we're all going to be in disagreement with this being relative to, like, we like, I see that as escapism, I guess. Like, that someone's attempt to... I feel that socially, maybe even because of the conditions of the world, let's say, there is a desire of escapism. And so people are going like, yes, multi-universe, like H.P. Lovecraft, like, yeah.
Well, I want to lay out the strict scientific definition of the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics before people like Deepak Chopra get a hard-on and say, consciousness is what's responsible for the universe taking shape and shit. No, that's not how it works.
I'm going to just say that because we've spoken very ill of Deepak Chopra, and I don't really know. I don't know where this guy's coming from at all. I don't know him. I haven't hung out with him and seen how he is with the ladies, but I just mean that I think that he's maybe someone that got comfortable with his mysticism, his mystic...
But my problem with that is that he tries to use quantum mechanics to back up his supernatural spiritual claims.
And he uses his unrelated professional credentials
as a doctor
to bolster his authority on completely separately related
so
theoretical
you're saying
physics.
He's trying to bring in things that he has no right in bringing in.
Well, I'm
like
saying he's corrupt. He's by definition
he's corrupt.
He's not. We've said this before, but he is not a quantum physicist, and he invokes quantum physics all the time to back up.
He's a medical doctor.
Yeah, he's a poor one at that.
Yeah, but hold on. I think it is possible. Oh no, we're going on a whole other length. I'm just saying that it's possible that someone within another discipline can quote another discipline's...
You can quote it,
sure,
but if you try to use that information to back up what you're claiming, then you need to have some kind of an understanding of it. He doesn't. He's just throwing out...
Well, he can have an understanding of it.
But he's misunderstanding quantum physics to back up his...
Well, hold on. He's not necessarily misunderstanding it, but he's certainly trying to do something else that you don't necessarily agree with.
He's trying to say that quantum physics proves that consciousness affects the universe. It doesn't.
That is a big idea that is suggested, but it
the
does.
Things that
it's not to say that what he said is. I don't know what he said, but I do believe
the things that the ways that he uses quantum mechanics, okay, to support whatever agenda or idea that he has about spirituality is not supported by the actual science that's being done with quantum mechanics. So the experimental data and results that come out of the theoretical physicists that are actually working with quantum mechanics, the conclusions that they're coming up with, they don't actually state anything about or anything close to what Deepak Chopra is saying about what it does. So he's getting it from nowhere, and even if he were let's say he were justified, or let's say what he was saying was valid. He's saying he's getting it from the quantum mechanics scientists, but that's not what any of the quantum mechanics scientists or their experiments are saying.
I find with a lot of the mystic people, they're using at least what I interpret to be a cognitive psychology to try and manipulate a person.
But he's not relying on cognitive psychology. He's relying on...
No, but I'm saying you take something and you take, let's say, science, and you use it as a metaphor or an analogy for something.
Okay, I think in the most charitable way to interpret Deepak Chopra, he's misinterpreting the metaphorical sense in which he understands the
right. He's also using
the science.
He's also misusing.
He doesn't understand that he himself is making kind of metaphorical assumptions and using quantum mechanics to inform metaphorically some other idea that he has in his head about the ontology of the universe.
Like in a general sense, I'm getting this impression that you guys are interpreting Deepak Chopra as just a guy fucking selling a skillet on TV.
Pretty much,
that's going, it does not stick. I'm telling you this does not stick, and then you buy it for like three orders of $29.99, and then you get it home and you cook your shit with it, and it fucking sticks.
But it's not that. It's not just that. I think he's objectively unethically and dishonestly using his credentials and speaking outside of his expertise on a subject and misrepresenting it.
But people do speak
and misrepresenting his
outside of
his
their
own
expertise
authority
all the time. Like I remember once.
Well, we do that. We do nothing but that.
We do nothing but that. That's what we're all about. Yeah, that's what this podcast should be renamed. Speaking outside of our expertise.
My God.
But I remember once in our podcast, Mark once saying, "Yeah, well, Nietzsche isn't a scientist, is he?" And in my mind, I'm like, you know.
Yeah.
I still feel that someone can look at something and possibly say something, and it could even be by accident, but it may be some sort of something that leads to something else.
But there's nothing preventing him from being honest about what he's doing.
Yeah, like
you feel there's a dishonesty there.
There's a definite dishonesty there. He misuses a lot of the terms in quantum mechanics in order to back up his point.
Are we saying that he believes?
I don't know
to
if
say
he
that something is dishonest. We're saying it's just not true.
I don't know if he believes it. I don't know if he necessarily
untruths.
believes it, but he's using it to sell his product, and that's what I have an issue with.
The product of his issue, his agenda.
Yeah.
His way of looking at the world.
His books, his lectures, his talks, whatever. He's using
his
quantum
authority.
mechanics in the completely wrong sense to sell his ideas.
He was one of the first people to glom on to really one of the newest sciences that there is out there that obviously nobody understands. There's that famous quote, was it Feynman, that said,
it was Feynman.
If you think you understand quantum mechanics, you don't understand quantum mechanics.
So there is with quantum mechanics, there is a sense of mysticism surrounding it. Is there
exactly.
not?
I think
mystery.
It's mystery. I think there's an erroneously. I don't want to say attributed again because I've been saying that way too much.
It's your word of the week. It's fine. Get it out.
Fine. There's an erroneously attributed mysticism to quantum mechanics because it's so weird and fucked up.
Well, and things do seem to appear out of nowhere. Am I incorrect? Like things do.
I'll get to that in a second.
Right.
But the reason why why quantum mechanics seems so counterintuitive is because we did not evolve to understand quantum mechanics. We evolved to survive in the Serengeti when we were still hunters and foragers. Like we evolved to avoid lions, not understand why electrons can appear and disappear in random or seemingly random locations.
I've been having these thoughts lately that we are in a sense a great consolidation period in social mind, let's say. That we're still consolidating a lot of information that we've come upon.
That's right.
And
you were talking about how we're losing our memory, right? Before how we're because we're relying on a commons of memory. Mm-hmm. Google. We're all referencing the exact same memory bank. So
Right.
So we're kind of evolving to have a common memory.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you're getting to right now, right?
I didn't know that I was getting at that, but
as soon as something disagrees with that common memory, then it's the Mandela effect.
for myself, I feel
right.
that I don't rely on my memory very much. I feel that it is something that is self-organizing in that sense. Like, for example, I watch a movie and you could go, so what do you remember of that movie? And I go, you know what? Can't tell you. Yeah. I understood as I was watching it, kind of thing, and right now I have a feeling about that movie. I liked it. Yeah. You know?
But memory is like a muscle. That's something that you can train to get better with.
You're right. And I, as a person, I'm saying that I have not explored that world of developing a memory for that kind of thing.
Right. Just like most people.
Yeah.
I think most of us don't actually take make an special point of training our memory and getting better at remembering things, especially in an age where we don't have to. Most of the things that are relevant to us...
Socially, memory is disappearing. Like, we look at our phones and go, fuck math, I have a calculator. You know?
Okay, one of the biggest things that pisses me off right now is online, where I see political arguments and stuff like that. People now have this memory of... the whole WMD in Iraq thing? People are no longer blaming the Bush administration for cherry picking the data that was actually presented to them by the intelligence community, and then the media just relaying what the Bush administration is what the official line of the White House is going to be, and what their justification is for going into Iraq. Now people all over the internet, they suddenly forgot that's where it originated, and they're blaming the intelligence guys, who actually most of which were saying, "Whoa, that's not what we're telling you." Mm-hmm. And we recommend the opposite of what you're about to say to everybody, but I guess, you're the commander-in-chief. And they're blaming the media as well for almost like a reverse relationship. It's like in their mind, without saying it, without thinking it through, it's almost as if they think the media are the ones that fed into the Bush administration and told the Bush administration to interpret the intelligence in the opposite way that was actually being communicated to them, and that caused the Bush administration to invade Iraq.
What is this shirt that you're wearing? It's like your wife's shirt or something? It looks like a blouse almost.
Fuck off! I like this shirt. It's a new shirt, actually.
It's a good shirt. It's pretty interesting.
You asshole.
No, it's good. It's good.
Okay, I want to...
I'm experiencing a Mandela effect because just a few hours ago, this shirt was awesome to me, and now all of a sudden, I'm very self-conscious.
I distinctly remember that shirt being awesome.
I distinctly remember that shirt being awesome in a former universe.
It's not awesome.
Now all
if
of a
anything,
sudden...
I'm saying it's all the more awesome. What is this shirt? Amazing.
Okay.
This shirt is amazing.
Jill's
shirt right now is amazing.
It's dark.
I thought it was a blouse. I would call it a blouse.
Oh,
You're wearing a man blouse.
Pretty much. It's a man blouse. It's dark with many kind of clashing.
It looks like it has shoulders.
Colors
even.
like very tiny. There's no shoulder pads on there. I'm just
it's not shoulder pads.
I just have
the cut gives you shoulders.
Okay, maybe. Yeah.
It does.
Before we go.
No. I think it's the very awesome frame that I just have that makes the shirt look good.
Before we go too far off the rails, I want to loop back on this many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics, because many people who believe in the Mandela effect rely on that in order to back up whatever they're saying. So I think that warrants a definition.
A definition?
Yeah.
For the many worlds
the many worlds interpretation. Okay. It's really important to understand what this theory actually says.
Okay.
Well, it seems absurd.
Well, okay.
Well,
hold on.
Am I not like? I just think escapism right away.
It is escapism if you don't understand the theory. So I have this long
Are you
thing
claiming
to
I don't understand something right now and I'm speaking too soon? Okay.
Goddamn right.
Go on.
Let's hear the official.
Okay.
Let's hear it.
So before we go into the meat and potatoes of the many worlds interpretation, we have to understand a couple of important definitions first. So let's talk about superposition. So that's when a quantum object exists in all possible states simultaneously. So if you take the example of a particle being either spin up or spin down, when a particle is in superposition, it's in both at the same time, both spin up and spin down. Okay? So the other important thing we need to understand is what a wave function is. So a wave function, it can be considered like a mathematical list of every single configuration of a quantum object. So now that we understand those two things, do we? So the Copenhagen interpretation of quantum mechanics was the preeminent accepted theory for like 30 years or something. So what that said was that an object in a superposition, as soon as you make an observation on it, so as soon as you observe it and you make a recording, at that point the wave function collapses and you get at random whatever observation it is that you make. Okay, so all other possibilities just randomly disappear and you get this one position of that particle, let's say spin up, right? So that's what the Copenhagen interpretation said. As soon as you make the observation, wave function collapses, you get a random result. So 30 years later in the 1950s, this guy called Hugh Everett comes along and he's like, I don't like that. I don't like that idea that the universe is random. And I could be mistaken, but I think Einstein also had that same problem with it. Like that's where
that
the
whole roll the dice.
Yeah, God doesn't play dice
right.
thing. Like Einstein didn't like the idea of randomness being the reason why something appears the way it does when you make an observation.
I think randomness is also there.
It is, but what Everett did was he expanded the wave function to the rest of the entire universe. So it became the Everett postulation. So the universal wave function is a description of every possible configuration of every single elementary particle in the universe. So what Everett did essentially was apply Schrödinger's wave function equation to the entire universe. So in Everett's many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics, what happens is instead of the wave function collapsing when you make an observation, the universe splits off into every possible combination within that wave function.
Right.
So instead of it being a random occurrence, the observation is just recording one possible universe. The rest don't cease to exist. They just split off into nearly infinite universes. Now, the important thing to remember about the many worlds interpretation is that it depends very, very, very highly on probability and the laws of physics. So these infinite universes can exist so long as they don't violate the laws of physics and they don't violate probability. So
so they follow the same rules.
But the laws of physics are specific to our particular universe.
And Everett's interpretation is specific to our universe. So these infinite splitting universes are just reflections or refractions of our universe that result
it seems that they would be. It sounds like he's talking about the slightest variation creating hairs kind of thing. You know what I mean?
That's exactly it. That's what Everett was postulating. So that is Everett's many worlds
interpretation. Can I just say, it's almost like it doesn't seem relative. You can talk about it, but really we're always still just focused on one. The one that's occurring.
The reason why it seems like the one that's occurring is the one we're observing is because our consciousness stays rooted in the one we're observing, right? You're not aware, in Everett's theory, of what your other split selves are doing.
Sure, that's another self.
That's another self. And for all you know, your other self could be having a completely different conversation right now with the rest of us, or you could not be here. Gilles, you might be having a different conversation. I might not even be part of the podcast.
I might have a less blousy shirt.
He's taking his shirt off, and now I was going to say something terrible.
One of the problems that arises with Everett's theory is the idea of consciousness. So Everett himself said fuck off to consciousness. He's like, it has no bearing whatsoever on it. So I just want to quote from a book from a science writer named Peter Byrne.
Hold on. How can it be possible to take consciousness out of the equation?
Because
go on.
Okay, because the observer doesn't necessarily have to be conscious. The thing making an observation on a quantum object can be a Geiger counter, for example. It has no consciousness, but it's recording a measurement. And that's the only thing that matters in order to
remotely recording.
I think there's different definitions of consciousness. I think, you know what, consciousness is a whole other episode.
For sure, but what I'm trying to get across is that consciousness is not important whatsoever to the many worlds interpretation. So just a quote here, according to Everett, human consciousness plays no supercausal role in the microscopic realm, for if it did, then the universe would be a creation of human consciousness. But whose? He considered consciousness to be nothing more or less than a quantum system itself, the physical state of a brain with no claim to special powers, and he was keenly aware that the observer need not be human, although it had to be physical. The only requirement for scientific observation, he said, is that an event leave an impression or create a record in the environment, and that does not require human agency.
Well, I think that the human agency is only a part of. It's a fraction.
But it's not necessary in terms of
no, it's
making
not
an
necessary at
observation.
all. Well, man, necessary is not. That's to me. I don't even understand the word necessary. That actually doesn't exist.
Well, it's not it's not needed for an observation of a quantum object to be recorded.
Right. We're talking Berkeley shit. Like if the tree falls in the forest, it's gonna fucking make a sound even if no one's there.
Sure.
Is what we're saying.
Yeah.
It does make a sound.
Yeah, he was just saying consciousness is not important to the active observation of a quantum object. So the reason why Everett...
But that doesn't change the fact that it could change the observation of it.
It's irrelevant to it. It's completely irrelevant. Like...
You're saying consciousness is irrelevant.
To the observation in a quantum object, yes. It's completely irrelevant. Because all you're doing is making the observation and recording that measurement.
How can you say that consciousness is irrelevant?
It has no influence. No,
it has no influence?
It has no influence on what it is you're observing.
I don't know. I'm not sure if that's the case.
Well, the problem with the Everett's many worlds interpretation is that it's untestable, it's unfalsifiable. So a lot of scientists just dismiss it outright. I don't think
that that's another problem with science. I don't think things should be dismissed.
No, they're saying they're like a lot of scientists just dismiss the theory because they can't test it.
Right. No, you're right. What's the point of talking about shit that we can't really talk about with any solid?
A lot of them just fall back on the Copenhagen interpretation. Just record the fucking thing and be done with it.
Yeah. That makes sense to me. Just record and see what we can do with it afterwards. But at least try and make the most accurate recording possible. I think that's all we can do, really. Like we're recording machines. To try and record things as best possible.
Well, I think Everett's interpretation has a lot of elegance to it. Like the math is there to back it up. Don't ask me what that math is because I'm not a quantum physicist and I don't understand what the fuck he's talking about most of the time. But the math will back up the theory. It also does.
What is this theory? Say it again. This theory.
I'm going to start over with this?
Yeah.
Okay, so
I need to consolidate it, kind of thing. Like
So Copenhagen interpretation says that as soon as you make an observation,
all right,
and a measurement,
yeah,
the wave function of that particle collapses, and you get a result at random, and that's what you're recording. The random, random set of probabilities.
So by saying random, we can't make sense of it, is what you're saying.
We're saying random meaning you don't know where it came from. You don't know how that result came to be.
We can't make sense of it.
Sure.
Okay.
What Everett said, on the other hand, was that
an uncaused result.
You're observing one possible multitude of possibilities, right? Instead of the wave function collapsing and all those other probabilities disappearing, they're just splitting off into different universes.
Yeah, and you just happen not to have recorded those ones,
right?
Because you remain on a single line.
That's exactly it. Meanwhile, your other selves
but that
have
means,
made different
that
observations.
Means in the infinite number of points along our linear timeline, there's an infinite number of universes that are constantly being created.
Or nearly infinite, so long as they don't violate probability and the laws of
infinity, yeah. We can't wrap our mind around infinity, can we? But we really can't.
Yeah.
Am I wrong? Like things that continue, we can't grasp.
No. Was it Gödel that tried to he tried to divide things as small as possible and come to...
Well, even Bertrand Russell tried to do that.
Like dividing one as small as possible to the point where eventually you would arrive at zero or something. But you can't. There's like an infinite number of portions of one.
Yeah, and you can keep splitting that.
And you can keep splitting that infinitely, which he just couldn't wrap his head around, and he spent years continuing
you can't.
to try
You can't wrap
to
your head
divide
around that.
smaller and smaller and smaller.
Like you have
you
to
just can't.
go
and
into
you
some
actually went crazy
transcendental.
doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Awesome. Somebody went crazy
Someone
trying to
went
wrap
crazy.
their head around infinity.
Yes.
Yes.
Well,
That's my favorite.
There's also this
my-
whole
yeah,
idea
I love
of different infinities. Like there are infinities beyond infinity.
What?
Yeah, they're like these weird mathematical.
Well, they'd all
infinities
amount
that-
to infinity, wouldn't they?
What does that mean? Different infinities.
I can't even describe it. It's this whole branch of mathematics that's like you have.
We've gone too far now.
I'm not gonna.
We're nowhere near the Mandela effect anymore. Can we try and
wrap it back to that?
This
roll
is
it
the
back
one
to
that's gone
Mandela.
the furthest. Like we are so off. Like what we were talking about originally. What are we even talking about now?
I don't remember.
Well, because the
Memory
Mandela
help.
effect.
I'm waiting for Mr. Poopy.
So the
Poopy
Mandela
Butthole to
effect
show up and go, "Hey,
is-
Rick."
So the Mandela effect is tied into this many worlds interpretation. So we've got this cursory understanding right now of.
Well, I feel like we wanted to talk about this other thing, really.
Yeah.
Like I feel like we wanted to talk about where this Mandela effect took us.
Right.
We're more interested in this is trying to grasp what reality is, sort of thing.
Okay. So you're saying the Mandela effect actually is just serving the greater purpose.
I mean, for us,
of us understanding.
Right
Okay.
this is what we've used it as a tool to get to this other
Sure.
thing that it seems that we wanted to talk about. Maybe, possibly.
Okay. So what do we want to? Does I don't know.
where
Do you want to say that this explanation of quantum mechanics and the many worlds idea, like, do you have any conclusions about it from what you're hearing?
Well, no.
No. Okay. Let's just go back to the Mandela effect.
I was just saying that like this is the reason that people they use the many worlds interpretation as an excuse or as a justification for the Mandela effect,
Right.
But in Everett's theory, he never allowed for the possibility of these different realities or different timelines
To cross
interacting,
and merge.
crossing
Right,
or
yes, of
merging or
course.
whatever.
It does seem absurd
Yeah.
to us and our perception of
Because
reality.
I watched a couple of YouTube videos on this Mandela effect, just random YouTubers, and they're saying how they're from the original timeline, and they're here with this mystical message for the rest of us in this one. They're here to save us in some bullshit.
Okay, hold on. So let's just pretend that it's even possible that they have a message. What would their message be? Do they have a message?
They're messengers of peace or something. They're trying to prevent us from destroying
See,
our
I like
timeline.
that. I like peace.
But sure, but you don't have to be from another timeline to promote
No,
that.
you're right. I do think that people are looking for some sort of break in reality, in a sense, to try and get that message across.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Sure.
Well, the thing that strikes me about your idea of escapism and people coming up with this Mandela effect to kind of it sounds kind of hopeful to me. Like
well, I think
like they're
it is
trying
grasping. There is. We always have to.
They're
grasp
trying to
something.
reconcile the chaos that they perceive and
Yeah. Like
and
I think,
again create order.
I think the
there's-
more insane our
confusion.
world becomes, the more insane we will try to come up with theories that are against it to try and dismantle it. In some sort of.
But you know what's funny is one of the while I was researching this Mandela effect stuff this week, I came across this one video on YouTube of a woman in the middle of the night. It's like 3:00 in the morning. She decides to
think I've seen this
post a video about the Mandela effect. And
3 in the morning?
She's freaking out. She's like, I can't sleep,
the
guys.
witching hour.
I can't sleep, guys, because I don't know who my husband is anymore. As in
This
my
sounds
in
like
my
a bad
memory,
Sandra Bullock movie
in
or
my
something
memory, Pangea and continental drift was quote unquote just a theory, like evolution, I guess. But when I spoke to my husband recently, he says, no, it's always been established science since at least the 60s or something. And she's like, but I remember you telling some story where you were laughing at another student who was commenting on how the continents seemed to fit together like a puzzle or something like that, and everybody laughed at them because the continental drift theory was just a theory and was not accepted science. And so because in her mind she had filed continental drift away as not real science. Mm-hmm. She had filed that away in her mind
to support her agenda.
I don't get it, or it's been presented to me by people who don't understand it and say it's bunk. So that's what it is. And so now that I'm finally getting exposed to information about it that's definitive and that I can't ignore, all of a sudden my interpretation or my understanding and memory of it is right and is being undermined by a fraud universe. Because obviously I can't just be wrong about something. It has to be the rest of the world that's wrong.
Yeah. It seems to me that people are getting very upset when their world is destroyed by other people's worlds. And people's worlds are built up on ignoring other people's worlds
all the
and
time.
Shit like that. You know what I mean?
Well, the thing that's ironic about this is that, like, you're saying that it's like a hopeful kind of escapism thing, but people are actually, in this instance, for example, are using this to destroy their world and their marriage and their...
When you said hope, I didn't mean
like she
positive.
now no longer trusts her husband, who I have no idea how
it can go bad.
That's crazy.
It's crazy.
It's very, very easy to go real deep down the rabbit hole when it comes to this Mandela Effect thing.
Yeah,
like people they'll get wrapped up in it and they'll start fucking with their own heads and destroying their own relationships, like you're just saying with this one particular example, right? It's people become unhinged whenever they start really, really getting deep into this shit, and that's kind of scary and also a little bit sad when you think about it.
It is, yeah. It all comes down to
egoism. That's what I think. I think people are just way too comfortable with their egos and way too comfortable with asserting the authority of
what they think is real,
of their certainty, you know, like
and asserting it, kind of thing. Yeah, I would think there's no assertion of ego if there's no unless there's conflict. Does that make sense? That you're only asserting your ego when there's a problem. There's no need to assert an ego if there is no problem. If you were at peace with yourself, there would be no need to assert an ego,
I guess.
So the need to assert an ego comes from being wrong.
Right.
Or having some sort of an issue somewhere. Yeah. You've met some sort of a problem within yourself. Anyways, I'm just thinking this now at this moment.
Right. You're spitballing, but I like it. Yeah. That's that's good.
Yeah. Okay, well...
It's all bullshit.
Fuck.
Well, that's just it. Basically, this whole Mandela Effect thing, I think it really comes down to, like, overconfidence in our cognitive faculties.
People saying, I distinctly remember that happening, you know? But you don't. You think you remember something that happened.
This comes around to this idea that I had before about we're not knowing machines. Mm-hmm. We're not fucking made for knowing. That's not what our brain is supposed to do, you know?
That's, yeah, our brains were made or evolved to survive, right? They didn't evolve to create perfect memories or understand the actual nature of what's beyond our small myopic vision of reality.
I keep on thinking of that insect that I heard about and how they're seeking symmetry. Like they're mating with the bug that has the most balanced wings, the most symmetrical wings.
Well, we do that too.
So we're seeking symmetry.
We do that. Like our idea of beauty is based on symmetry.
Symmetry, yeah, right. Aesthetic. Mm-hmm. Life as aesthetic. That's all it is. No meaning, just pure aesthetics.
At the same time, though, you can actually kind of go too far over the edge in the other direction. And I'm pretty sure I've heard of some studies where people were asked to measure the attractiveness of different faces, and they made like some faces that were artificially symmetrized.
Yeah, super symmetrical.
So all of our faces, there's a little bit of difference between the two sides.
Yeah, both sides are different.
But they made faces where they actually
symmetrical.
like perfectly made them symmetrical.
And it was
they just mirrored the image.
weird.
It was weird. Yeah,
you end up with a
they
really
seemed odd.
uncanny effect.
Yeah.
Like you look at it and it looks
Scary,
really
almost.
scary. Yeah. So I don't know. I guess that's like the uncanny valley kind of thing.
All right. Well,
Fuck, this went off, eh? Like,
Yeah.
we went off on crazy. Like, this seems like one of the longest ones we've ever done. How
it
long
isn't.
is this?
We're only at an hour and 4 minutes, but
it's just-
we didn't even think we'd have like 15 minutes to talk about on this one. But yeah, I guess.
Well, no, I don't want to end it. Actually, there's
All right.
there's a few more ones that I want to talk
Go
about.
for it. Let's bring it.
So
man.
I think another thing that I found when I was looking up this stuff is that a lot of people
Were you looking up in that shirt?
No.
Leave the shirt out of this.
Okay, sorry.
So
have
so I found a lot of
affected
people were connecting it to like religious stuff.
Really?
Yeah. So it's often religious people that buy into the Mandela Effect stuff.
Oh, actually, yeah. I saw this one video of a guy going on about the Mandela Effect and how the universe is being changed and whatever, and then he starts referencing scripture, right? And he's
No warning.
no warning, just out of the blue starts talking about the Bible. And I'm like, where did this come from? How does this relate to anything? But he's got this weird Gandalf beard, and he's like obviously in what looks like a basement bunker kind of deal with like all these arcane biblical books around him, and he's just going on, and I'm like, what are you talking about? How is this even remotely religious? But then they're saying how it's going to be the day of judgment and whatever, and we're starting to see the signs of reality collapsing because Jesus is coming to judge us and whatever.
Yeah.
It's the weirdest thing.
A lot of people think these false these new conditions that we perceive that adherents to the Mandela Effect perceive as being false. They think that it's the devil that planted them.
Yeah.
That like even this woman that was going crazy about her husband understanding continental drift and her not, and thinking, well, that's automatically because the universe is wrong and I'm right. So she ends her video saying like, I'm ready for the rugged cross, and then she goes, she seems like she's thinking very very somberly, and she goes, it's and she pauses really long and she goes, biblical.
People are seeking drama. We're dramatic, man.
And so there's so I found a bunch of examples that were definitely related to religion in scripture. There's one that people are really freaking out about, and it's the Isaiah 11:6.
You're gonna quote that now?
I'll quote it. So in this passage, it goes, "The wolf also shall dwell with the lamb, and the leopard shall lie down with the kid,
Yeah, I know
and
this
the
one.
calf and the young lion and the fatling together, and a little child shall lead them."
Is this the one where they
So-
claim that never happened, or that was never a part of that scripture?
So no, what they think is that that very first part, the wolf also shall dwell with the lamb, they think it was always the lion shall lay with the lamb.
That was it, yeah. So
So-
they think the universe is now changing the Bible.
Yeah. So they think the devil is corrupting the Bible.
Wow.
But the funny thing is that first of all, the lion is named later in that passage, is mentioned later in that passage where they say
So this is another case
the
of
lion
Mandela
and the
effect,
yearling.
Right
and,
here.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like the Bible, okay.
But what I think is happening there is that there's definitely related imagery, right, for the lion and the lamb in Christianity. You've got the Lewis Carroll stuff with the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, right? That lion is definitely some kind of god figure. And even in the Bible, they do actually refer to Jesus, like in Revelations. In Revelations chapter 5, verse 5, Jesus is the Lion of Judah, right? And so
what do they mean by lion? What is a lion? I guess majestic.
That's it.
Big, powerful.
there you go. He's a
kind
symbol
thing.
of like royalty and strength.
Power,
That's God,
yeah.
right?
Like the mane is almost sunlight.
That's
you
it.
know?
Yeah, there
Exactly.
you go. There you go.
Big.
But then the thing about Christianity that makes it so fucking clever, right, is that there's an inversion, right? And so God decided, no, fuck you all. I'm gonna make myself into a lamb.
I'm the lamb now, bitches.
Hey, the God is actually a lamb, you know, and he's a sacrificial lamb. He presents himself to be sacrificed for all of our sins and all that. So of course there's like this very well established kind of mythology with the imagery of the lion and the lamb, and then when you just get to this one passage which happens to mention a lamb, you're like, there better be a lion mentioned right next to it.
And bam, nope.
No, but it's mentioned all over the place elsewhere, right? This idea of the lion and the lamb, and they just can't accept that there could possibly be a passage in the Bible.
Because I remember it being there.
Yeah.
Right?
I see.
Yeah. Like, the same Gandalf beard guy that I was talking about, he brought that up in that video that I was talking about. Like, he pulls out a Bible, and he's like, see, I told you. I remember it being there. But look at the passage.
Yeah.
Look.
Can I just say, because I think that a lot of the time we're going to speak against the Bible and all that stuff, or against what people are making of the Bible.
Okay.
But really, the Bible's it's a pretty good book. Like, am I wrong in the sense that it's rich with imagery
as a work of fiction? Sure, it's
in an anthropological sense, it's fascinating.
As a piece of literature,
piece of literature, it is a fantastic book.
Sure,
like, it's a good book. Can I not say that?
I wouldn't say good.
Literature-wise, it's debatable.
Yeah.
Okay, sure. I shouldn't, as myself being who I am and how I think of things, I shouldn't use good and bad in general.
It's an important piece of history. It's an important piece of literature to take as that alone.
And our brain has taken a lot from it and tried to use it to symbolize things and stuff like that.
I don't know if every brain has done that, but certainly.
Well, it's an important one. It's there.
In an anthropological and social science kind of sense.
Yeah.
It's an important work.
Social psychology.
And it's rich. Like, there's some stuff in there, you know what I mean? Like, there's some parables and there's stories that we can draw things from.
Sure, absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's rich, is what I'm saying, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Like, it's if it's a chocolate, it's a really tasty
Sure, I'm not going to deny that. I'm willing to accept that.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't... I mean, as much as I'm an atheist and I have problems with religion and how people use religion...
You are a full-on atheist. You do not believe...
Oh, absolutely, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
On Dawkins' 1 to 7 scale, there I'm the 6.
I'm also the 6.
Oh, there's a scale?
Yeah, Dawkins came up with this scale where
scale of 1 to
7 is you know absolutely that there is no God, and 1 is you know absolutely that there is a God.
I'm a 6.
Oh yeah, there's a scale. Okay, so absolutely
it's the Dawkins scale.
It's the Dawkins scale.
I think it's actually called the Dawkins scale now.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm all 3, man.
Really?
Oh yeah?
Yeah. Like I'm agnostic.
You're like a 4, probably.
No, I can't say that I'm a number. I can't say. It's the interpretation. It's the use of language there. You know, in defining what a god would be or could be, and how it could be interpreted as God. You know, like, as I would be more of a Spinoza dude, you know, thinking reality is God, you know, that type of a thing, or something like that. I don't know.
But then God is just a metaphor, and you're no longer...
Well, sure, that's what I mean. It's very poetic, so I don't know what truth is. Even considering
the same concept
when we delve into poetics and stuff like that, like, truth disappears in a lot of ways, and it becomes all very symbolic and stuff like that, you know? So I wouldn't know how to define myself. If someone were to ask me, are you an atheist, are you theist, or are you agnostic, right now I have to go all 3, and I've gone through different phases where I go, I'm this, I'm that, I'm this, I'm that, and it's in a state of flux. It depends how we're talking at it, you know. That's how I feel about it.
Okay.
I don't know if even that's just how I feel about it. I don't even know if that makes sense in terms of thoughts. So yeah. Anyways, where are we fucking gone, man? I don't know where are we going with this.
You're so open about everything. I mean, I don't know. I know I don't know shit, but I also know that there's certain things that I'm willing to accept and certain things that I'm not willing to accept, and I feel like I at least have at least a little bit of a faculty for kind of separating obvious bullshit from plausible might be's or probably ours.
Yeah. See,
you know what I mean?
I like to base everything on probability and evidence. I'm willing to say, like, I don't fucking know a lot. There's a lot of shit I really have no idea about. On the other hand, there's a lot of shit where the evidence would tend to point in a certain direction. I'm willing to accept that until other evidence comes along to disprove it.
Right.
I almost think it's kind of dishonest to pretend that you aren't sometimes presented with evidence that suggests that something is wrong, that something is not correct.
Well, this is a big problem. People have a hard time admitting they're wrong.
Yeah.
This is a hard thing to do.
But this is part of why I land where I do on that atheism scale, right? Is because I feel like there is plenty of evidence. Or not I feel like I understand that there's plenty of evidence that contradicts what's being claimed by the people on the 1, 2, 3 end of the scale.
On the other hand, in a similar kind of vein, I don't think there's enough evidence to back up the claims made by the 1, 2, and 3 people on that scale.
Sure, yeah, that too, exactly.
Yeah. And that's why I'm also on that 6th echelon.
I think that in terms of my interpretation of reality and stuff like that, I think I am Taoist. Like, I've settled into that. Like, someone else told me that that's what I was.
Yeah.
And it's like, as I age, I realize that I guess that's how I'm expressing myself, you know what I mean? So there is no God, but there is some sort of a oneness factor. Like, I don't think that subject and object are separate. I feel that often comes...
If you're talking on the universal level, then...
Well, what other level is there? I don't understand.
Hold on a second. If you're talking on the universal level, then I can accept that we're all part of the same thing, right? We're all part of this. We're not separate from the universe. We're part of it, right? So in that regard, I think what you're saying of like subject and object, what is the difference, right? If we're all part of the same system, then it's the same. It's the same thing. Like, where do you make that delineation?
Right, it's all knit together.
At the same time, my asshole and my mouth are part of the same system. Yet I don't want them thinking that they're the same thing and that they can serve the same purpose.
Right. No.
I don't want them anywhere near each other.
Well, I'm saying that a cock inside an ass or a mouth is fucking fantastic. I'm sorry, Mom.
Off the rails.
I'm sorry, Mark's mom.
Over the line.
There are things we can do with things, let me tell you.
I know none of you can see this right now, but I'm doing a double facepalm.
No, it's true. People have...
For any listeners out there, I am double facepalming.
Yeah.
Thank
we'll
you,
have
Luke.
to put up one of those parental advisories before the show.
I should.
Yeah.
Okay, do we want... Is there anything...
Do we want to end on that note?
Like, this is Crazy Train, man. This is Ozzy Osbourne going, like, what happened to this episode?
Do we have anything else? Do we want to... Do you have any final thoughts?
Does anybody have any examples of possible Mandela effects that they might have experienced themselves?
I for sure have transformed memories. Like, I have misremembered things, like, in my life. Unbelievably so.
Okay.
It's incredible.
Are there any specific examples that you can think of that you can mention here?
Making out with people that I did not remember later on, you know, and not being able to even comprehend that happened, you know, stuff like that.
Right.
Like not being able to remember what really happened. Like
Yeah.
my brain going, no, I was trying to do something else, and so I'm going to continue doing that. And that's what my brain is set to do, and that's what I'm going to do, and that's where my brain is going to go, and no matter what, nothing's going to stop me, you know what I mean? And it's total fucking bullshit.
So you totally like repressed this other memory.
Like,
but as far as you're concerned in your conscious mind...
I have seen evidence of my mind playing extremely large tricks on me that are unbelievable afterwards, to the point that I feel that I cannot trust my mind anymore. Like I have to try and gather some sort of other awareness technique to try and approach things, because things didn't work here. Yeah. I could not remember that, like, like my brain has played tricks on me, man. Like it's incredible.
The one that almost got me was the C-3PO leg thing. When I first read that, I'm like, what the fuck? Oh my god. Then I started thinking, maybe I just didn't notice.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, I didn't know. I went and rewatched like the original unedited version of Empire Strikes Back, and I'm like, hey, fucking silver leg, dude, right fucking there. And
I guess what I'm saying is I have blocked out memories altogether, like alien abduction type shit, you know what I mean? Where I can't even process it until it's talked out with someone, and then I go, holy fuck. And years later, as it takes time for me to even process it, you know what I mean?
Right.
And then I seem to remember it. I don't even know, I'm not sure. I can't be sure,
What about you, Jill?
So to some extent, you almost doubt that that when people are presenting you with an event that you have no memory of, but that you should.
I think it's a possibility. I think it's possible now. Like I think.
But you don't think it's possible because you're actually conscious of a seed of it in your own mind. You're just thinking it's possible because of the authority of other people.
Here I'm saying that I have noticed stuff in my own mind that has been skipped, blocked out, that type of thing, to the point that I can't necessarily trust it.
Right.
Do you think there's a reason why you're blocking that out?
Well, I think it's just a map of direction. My mind is going, no, this.
Right.
And then someone's going, but no, this.
It's just like a process of triage. Your mind is making choices of what it wants to call important and what it wants
based on my morality,
to steer
all that
towards.
Stuff. I'm steering towards this. What do you mean? No, that never happened.
Yeah.
Like, I have seen evidence in my own life that
let me put this question out there then. How do we come to a consensus about reality if we can't trust our own memories? If everyone's memories are as flawed as our own, how do we come to a consensus of what actually happened?
I think it's possible that it doesn't matter what a person's perception of reality is, and that I guess I'm coming from a moral standpoint here, that in a sense we have to focus on being good and developing what is good within ourselves, whatever that may be, sort of thing, and focusing on that and developing that. In the sense, I'm a person that's all about compassion and stuff like that.
That's a very kind of high level, overarching kind of moral position.
Yeah, and that's terrible.
But it's not that that's terrible, but there is this whole other aspect to life, which is like the pragmatic, like actually navigating through it,
good, kind of
surviving and working and living and
yeah. In that sense, I guess I am saying it's possible that we have.
There has to be some kind of consensus on a practical level, is what I'm saying. More than just at that high moral level, there has to be a consensus on like benign facts. You know what I mean? Like not moral ones, but just actual facts.
Models. We have to have some solid models to depend on, is what you're saying.
Not only models, but actual concrete things we can point at and say this is.
Well, yeah,
this is
okay,
true.
and by that I mean models, like concrete models that are forming a reality that we can all agree on, kind of thing.
Right.
And I guess that's what we're always going with, really. Like if
I'm just thinking about how. So now we have this technology where we record history and we record a lot of information. There's the printed word that came out a few hundred years ago, and now there's the internet and
level is being recorded, as something is being recorded.
Yeah. So there's this stuff that we can point to that's independent from individual memories, but thinking about how this Mandela effect kind of seems to connect disproportionately with religious people and religious stuff. It kind of makes me think that religion. Think about how religion at one point the kind of spoken word histories and mythologies. These were like the proto histories, right, of humans, and these were the collective memories and the common memories that people could point to by repeating.
I love this idea of the pointing.
Hey, there you
Where
go.
are we pointing? What the fuck is shit pointing at? You know what I mean?
Right.
And I would suggest that as a human society, we're not fucking pointing at all. You know what I mean? Or we're pointing in all sorts of different
mythologies
directions.
and religions were kind of like emergences of an attempt to find something common to point to say, okay, let's
So you're
establish the
suggesting
Ten
that-
Commandments and
right,
so
and
let's all agree
that's
on
what
this
religion
kind of
is,
thing.
and that's what religion is trying to do. It's trying to point. Let's just let's just go in this direction, you know.
Yeah.
And I think that there is a certain commonality with the religions that we can unite. And you know what?
Sure.
I think as good human beings, we would all go, yes, that makes sense. You know, love is in that sense a really fucking good idea. You know what I mean? And to be compassionate towards other people, it's a good idea.
In that sense,
there's some good
I think
ideas in
that,
there.
That
you know?
goes beyond religion. That when you're talking about things like compassion and cooperation and things like that, that's an evolutionary trait. It's
You're
something
right.
it's something that helped us survive.
And I'm just saying that religion has just tried to solidify it.
I don't think it tried to solidify it. I think it piggybacked on those instinctual evolutionary ideas.
I see it, I guess, as the same
kinda
thing.
capitalized on
Piggybacking, solidifying. It's the same shit. It's trying to make it. It's trying to make it a thing.
It's trying
Even
to
if
own
it's
it.
not. It's trying to
It tried to own it for its own purposes.
It's trying to
in a
describe
lot
it.
of
It's trying to
trying
make
to
it a
own
sign.
it, use it as a weapon.
Yeah.
It's trying to make it
You
a
know,
hard science.
use it. There you go. Use it. Use it to claim some kind of authority, and but I mean, I think it's funny. Again, kind of bending it back towards the Mandela effect. Maybe the reason why the Mandela effect seems to bug religious people so much is like you're saying, it's an example of a violation from that common thing we're trying to point to, or that the religion writ large is trying to do. The religion writ large is trying to settle some kind of objective dogma, right? That has,
Trying to make
has
something
authority.
solid.
And this thing comes along and
And
challenges
this
that.
comes along and contradicts it, even in their own mind, and
Puts a doubt in
that's
there.
evil.
It's deeply contradicting their dogma and their way of
That's
thinking and their teachings.
rather than using and quote unquote, God forbid you challenge the dogma, you're going to challenge reality instead, because the dogma is to be protected at all cost.
Okay. Well, at this point, we're officially at the longest episode ever.
Is it? Yeah? Okay, so I finally got to it. It felt like I was going to get to it. We did it.
We did it. Congratulations.
On nothing.
All
The
right.
one that we thought would last for 15 minutes
That's
lasted.
right.
Hour and a half.
And went off.
Amazing. I wonder if anybody's going to listen to this
I hope so.
all the way through.
Well, from what you understand, looking at the stats, it is 18 to what? 34-year-olds or something like that? Like
Our
looking
YouTube stats right now are placing our primary audience at females 18 to 34.
at the beautiful women. They're looking at us. They're watching.
Thank you, everyone.
I
who's
love
watching.
you. My name is Luke. Please contact me. My number is...
Luke, you're drunk. Put the bourbon away.
Right, I'm drunk.
I am a lot more single than Luke. So, anyway, do we have any final thoughts on the Mandela effect, the nature of reality, or anything else we've rambled on for the last...
We have so many more thoughts. So many more thoughts.
Closing thoughts.
They will continue.
Closing
No,
thoughts.
I don't.
Yeah, I don't have any closing thoughts.
All right, then.
I'm good.
No closing.
I reject clothing.
yeah. Awesome.
Well, this has been a
Hell of a time. A hell of a time.
It's been a hell of a time.
fascinating conversation. Yeah.
All right.
Cool.
Thanks, guys.
That was amazing. This has been Critical Junction episode, what is this, 14? 14. I'm Mark.
I am Luke.
And I'm Jill.
Supposedly. Yeah.
Bye, guys.
As always, thanks for listening, and
Thank
we
you.
will catch you again next time.